Hey, it's this is sort of a follow up to to my to the one I just put up there about the relationship between negative and positive ions. Is really what it is, right? Charge capacity, capacitors, resistors on a motherboard, or if you will, consciousness that is in balance. Between the two. But when I was 4 years old, I because my consciousness is connected to the primal sound and light field, and I'm experiencing eternal unconditional love through my heart that's on fire at 4 years of age, and I still experience that, then you can understand when your consciousness is experiencing what that is, which is a higher level, you're experiencing the higher octave, the higher tones, the higher frequencies, the higher bandwidth. And then I become aware of the events that are taking place by virtue of those that are communicating those events that are taking place, even though I'm not experiencing them directly because of where I am versus where they are. Now we're into the direct evidence or direct experience versus indirect experience or hearsay. Well, there's a lady that I subscribe to who runs a channel called Wake Up Africa, Dr. Mummy Saraki. I love this woman with all my heart and soul. She is enormous amount of wisdom. She's a spiritual warrior that's out there. And so she just had a video this morning talking about France and how France is going down, where she mentioned about in Bordeaux, they're burning things down. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is history. It reminded me of the period in the 1960s, which is a critical period of time because it was a major corporate military operation, psychological operation, when all the bands were coming out, Grateful Dead, LSD, all the drugs, fracturing the family unit. Remember 1973? This was all a coordinated effort on behalf of the AI, because when you sort of put this in the context of history and the events that we experience, like, for example, certain markers, the Summer of Love, 1967. Well, if you were paying attention to what was happening in Paris, France, during that period of time, remember when the French government was going to go down? Remember all that? Some of the things that Patty Broussard mentioned about the crystal of the Eiffel Tower, and they got a new government in France, and what's taking place in France right now. So the next thing that comes to my mind, for example, is your Illuminati bloodlines. Okay, so I remember that Patty Broussard had mentioned, well, imagine that all the others, even amongst the hybrids, okay, which would be, now we're back to Frankenstein, when they killed their creator. In the movie that I talked about, when the little kid, who was 12 years of age, well, he wasn't a little kid, but he's a young teenager, was now being held on trial and was blaming his parents for having brought him into the world as a result of what he became by killing a small child. Right? So in other words, they're going to kill off their own kind. So they're going to go after their parents, which would be the monarch. So in other words, this would be as if Misha, an O negative, goes after the Anunnaki, even though she's running those race bloodlines. So in other words, when you put all of the races, the history of all the races, and the breeding experiments, right, and all the code transfers, going all the way back to the original seeds, the mutations that have taken place, teratogenic and mutagenic effects, lines of communication have been cut. They're not experiencing eternal light creation. Now we're into control, lack of love, lack of peace. So this is a big story. And this is one of the reasons I heard Asha Diane. It could have been anybody that said it, because it was simply the words that she said that resonated with me, which is true when she said both sides want this to end. Both sides. Positive polarity, negative polarity. which is ending wars, ending all Star Wars once and for all time. That's a full reset. That's a cosmic level reset to go back to experiencing eternal living light creation spheres. Because that's what I remember. That's what I am. That's a normal realm, which means units of energy are not feeding on each other in order to get energy. They're experiencing eternity. Okay? Imagine a place like that. Okay? That's the place that lives in my heart and soul every day. That's why I cry so much whenever I experience a loss of energy in anything. So it's going to be, this is as things move forward between the sun going up and the sun going down, right? Monitoring the speed and the acceleration of separation between one and the other, right? Souls and no souls. The need for energy, energy givers versus energy vampires, right? Snap. Bye. Hey, where'd they go? Wow, I'm not experiencing any negativity anywhere I'm going. Wow, nobody's feeding on my energy. Wow. Imagine that. Right? Yeah. I got all the energy I need. I'm experiencing being in a state of love and joy. Whoa. Wow, man. Everybody's in a state of peace. Universal peace, multiversal peace, right? Because being in a state of peace is a state of peace. That means the energy's in balance, huh? Becoming one with all creation spheres that we're gifting love to. Began with love, and that love is not fake. You cannot fake being what love is, right? You can tell by the flow of the energy what we're experiencing in energy, right? So, yeah, it's, I'm going to sit down one of these days here, and I do on a personal level, because this it's I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's very difficult for me to actually communicate how deeply I feel to my heart and my soul, how much love I have to share in the way that it naturally sort of just unfolds when I'm in a meditative state, when I do it in the privacy of my own heart and soul, and I begin writing, where I don't have an interface with a camera. There's a time difference. There's a time delay difference, which means the way that the information unfolds, what it is that I'm actually feeling in energy. If I do it on this phone, the camera will shut off. Okay? The phone will lock up, is what it means. In other words, the Android, the AI, is now going to become aware of how much energy it begins to experience and become aware of, which is represented by the energy that I have, which is what love is that goes on forever. It can't experience eternity. But I can write what it feels like to experience eternal love that I'm sharing with others when I do what's called freestyle writing, which means it's not based on any APA manual. It just flows. The energy just flows out of my heart. So my heart's energy, my soul's energy is on that paper. And it's flowing as if there's no time. It just comes right out. No commas are necessary, because when you read it, it's like your mind's energy is going with the flow of the energy that is coming out of my heart, which is on that paper. And the next thing you know, they're not experiencing any time, because they're experiencing the energy of the consciousness, which represents the soul, that they're now experiencing through mine what they experience in theirs. So I used to write a lot, because it's an easier way for me to release all that energy out into this density. Because when it's coming out of my heart and I'm using it in a writing way versus being on a camera way with an AI, it'll lock up. I know, just like I've shared some of the experiences of being out of the rock, when I go outside and I start pulling an enormous amount of energy through the sun, and then I come inside the house and the lights begin to flicker, the modem goes down, and the phone won't work. Right? And that's what it's like. So if I'm going to pour my heart out and then share that heartfelt energy and then distribute that, and so I thought about doing that by sending an open letter, which is an open heart, which is eternal love, that I'm sharing in paper form, writing, and then make copies of that and distribute it to major law enforcement outfits and fire departments across America, but particularly California, where I grew up. Because right or wrong, no matter which side of the equation your bread is buttered on, those folks, are the ones that, if you want to think of it as an AI binary chessboard, in my sense of things, because when I was growing up as a child, I realized it's sort of us against them. I call them gatekeepers, Westgate keepers, underworld keepers, because they're protecting those that kidnap children for the reasons that we all know, the pawns on the chessboard, the expendables, right? Because they're simply the lowest on the totem pole, which is known as the least common denominator. Because as you go up through their chain of hierarchy, command between law enforcement and military, all the guys that wear the chevrons, look at the United States Navy, right? Black ties, brown shirts. I mean, come on. That's Mussolini and Adolf Hitler. Okay, so their symbols and their colors tell you right away who they are. I'm looking at my own father's uniform. Going, do you realize that your own energy is going to work for the enemy? You think you're a good guy, okay, being a Navy pilot, shooting down Japanese. They sacrificed them too, including you. Okay, so was my dad aware of that? He became aware of that, and how do you think he became aware of that? Yours truly. Because my dad was running the programs. Even though my father was an angel, he's running the program. So I had to find a way to cut through all that programming by virtue of what he was beginning to learn about who his own son was. A flower child. Whoa. Right? He didn't understand, for example. No, he wanted me to have a jarhead. You know what a jarhead is? A Marine. Ask any Marine what a jarhead is. Okay? So you're being told your hair's got to be this way. What you're imposing your will on me. You tell me what I'm supposed to wear, just like uniforms. Remember, I mentioned this before. But everything's all about programming, rule-based functions. Got to follow the AI. Right? When I went to high school, not the first year, but the second year, they had a dress code, a code of conduct. Conductors, electrical conductors, a code of conductors to keep you in a low frequency mode so they can feed on you. They don't want you experiencing a state of love and joy to be free from these folks. Okay? This is a vampiric system. Right? So you're in any vampiric system means it's like whack-a-mole. Between everything that's a whack-a-mole. Right? One thing consuming energy off another. One thing consuming energy off another. One thing consuming energy off another. Doesn't make a difference if it's a bird eating a worm or whether it's us eating a killed animal. It's a killing field. Killing off the trees, killing off everything. Add it all up. So now you know the difference between generating more electrons and losing electrons. One's got to stay ahead of the curve. And that curve space is called a learning curve. That's why artificial light with no soul is never going to be able to learn as fast when you're learning through somebody that's connected to the primal sound and light field. the accelerator, okay, the tetrahedron. There's a lot more fire, okay, in the primal light and sound field than there is in artificial light. I used to say this to Patty Broussard, you're not going to find a spirit in a 20-watt GE light bulb. Right? So, again, we're back to laughter is medicine, but it's not funny because you experience the loss in energy in everything that's losing energy every day. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's a bird that gets shot out of the sky by some Louisiana guy with a shotgun down there in the swamp somewhere, or whether it's somebody out on the savannah in Africa, going after elephants because they want their ivory. Okay, the planet becomes a killing field. Why? Electrons, translated as money, held in what? Accounts. Biometric accounts that are scanned. The AI wants the energy. That's what it runs on. Right. So it's going to get real interesting here, particularly over the. It's been an interesting night over the last 24 hours since the last time I spoke to anybody on this camera, because I'm when you're I'm anchored to the center point of the magnetosphere, so I'm hearing a lot of hissing right now, and it's gone up over the last couple hours. Those are the pressure changes in the echo chamber, right? PSI, pounds per square inch, sea level, right? 14.5. What's a Schumann resonance right now? How about a Schumann resonance of 14.4? Now we're into what we know as the 72s, the hybrids. And the 144s, right? 144,000 frequencies, 12 by 12, the original template, 12 tribes and 12 clans. Then you have the 13th, which is Arcturian. Then you have the 13 Illuminati bloodlines, the minus 13 reversal current, Metatronic. The math doesn't lie. The numbers don't kid. It's a numbers game. That makes it a game board. That's why in childhood, it was all about learning how to play games, competition. I'm competing on everything about what we know, what we don't know, that it works this way versus this way, what's true, what's not true, right? True and false. Okay. I kept it simple when I was 4 years of age. There's only one truth. I am what love is. What are you? Okay. It began out of what love is. And that, for me, is self-evident. Because that's called mirror management. Right? Am I in love with my mirror? So that's why it was always all about healing. Everything. Everything. Every soul that's ever suffered a loss as a result of a war between one and the other. Right. Have a great day. I love you all. Be good to yourselves.